You all seem so eager to get started, quiet. It's getting real close to that time, so I guess we can go ahead and get started. We are going to finish up John chapter 8 this evening and then get into chapter 9. We read and just briefly started talking about the last few verses there in chapter 8 on Sunday morning, where Jesus has made this statement that if anyone keeps my words, he will never taste death. And of course, the Pharisees took that as an aha moment, proof that he has a demon. Abraham died, all of the prophets are dead. What are you trying to say here? And as Jesus goes on to explain to them, I'm not here to glorify myself. That would be nothing if I were just here talking about me. I'm here to be glorified by the Father and to tell you the things that He has sent me to do. And this is the one of whom you say He is our God. And He continues his argument, that if I said I didn't know him, I would be a liar like you all are. And that's just not the case. I do know him. I am from him. And your father that you've been claiming all along, Abraham, he rejoiced to see my day. And of course, that completely blows their mind. You're not 50 years old. How in the world can you claim to have seen Abraham? And Jesus then hits him with the statement that, truly I say to you, before Abraham was born, I am. And they understood what he meant by that as they picked up the rocks to start throwing at him to stone him because, well, now he's blaspheming. He's claiming to be God. Jesus is able to escape that and to get away from them for the time being. But that is where we left off Sunday morning. So, Mark has agreed to start us with a prayer tonight. So, Mark, if you'll do that.
Heavenly Father, we are so thankful for this beautiful day that you bless us with and the opportunity to come out and to study another portion of your word. As we go through John, we look at the things that John has written for us, and we can apply them to our lives and become better Christians, and to learn more about Jesus and what your plan for us is as we live on this earth. We pray for those who are not able to be out with us due to sickness or traveling or recovering from surgeries and things like that, that we know that if we pray for those people, that your healing hand will be on them and hopefully give them back a portion of their health. We pray for those that are struggling spiritually, that there's something we can do and say to prick their heart and to bring them back to you. And it's all in your Son's name we pray. Amen.
We've, talked several times about how Jesus, when he will answer the Jews or the Pharisees, he won't always just give them that obvious statement, right? He generally tries to make them work at it a little bit here. And there's probably several reasons for that. But as we see in this passage, he's made it obvious enough to them that they understand what he's saying this time and their reaction to that, which, if it weren't true, would be an offense punishable by death. But since he is God, they are completely, again, missing the point. And we've talked almost ad nauseum just about their hardness of heart, their unwillingness to even try to reason and to think about the things that Jesus is saying. They are so dead set against him. Their minds have been made up, and they just seem completely unwilling to listen to him. They have been planning for a long time to find a way and time to kill him, and so this obviously presents a good opportunity for that. Not being God's time, Jesus is able to, elude them, get away from this situation for another day. What else do you all want to say about chapter 8 here as we close that out and get ready to move into 9? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, good thought. Anything else? Let's go ahead and get into chapter 9 then, and let's read the first 7 verses of chapter 9.
As he passed by, he saw a man blind from birth, and his disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he would be born blind?" Jesus answered, "It was neither that this man sinned, nor his parents, but it was so that the works of God might be displayed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me as long as it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world." When he had said this, he spat on the ground and made clay of the spittle and applied the clay to his eyes and said to him, "Go, wash in the pool of Siloam," which is translated sent. So he went away and washed and came back seeing.
Okay, so here we have this story where Jesus is moving through. He comes across this man that has been blind all of his life. And what do the disciples want to know?
Who had sinned?
Yeah. Is this the right question to ask? Why is that? What would a more appropriate question for them to be considering, maybe, if this isn't right? Okay, all right. It's more of the heart we see from Jesus, right? What is the opportunity in this to do something that is helpful or good? And I just make that point, just a lot of application that we'll make in this text, but we kind of a lot of times want to look for the why in a situation of something that's wrong, instead of viewing it as an opportunity to be helpful or to glorify God in some way in something, in how we handle a situation or whatever that is. I just think it's helpful for me to think about just changing the way I look at things overall when I come across a situation, and maybe recognize opportunities in it instead of questioning why something maybe is happening. Okay, so does Jesus answer their question?
Yes. He tells them that nobody sinned, that it's for the glory of God that he's blind.
Okay, this was to present an opportunity, right, for God to be glorified. He is telling them and teaching them the importance to do the work of the one who sent him. And to me, he gives us, I think, a sense of urgency in the things that we need to be doing, right? Night is coming. There's coming a time when we won't be able to do things. But while we have the light, while we have day, we need to be making the most of that time and being useful in it, and being productive to make the most use of the time. Terry?
One of the things I think about when I read this is that notice the context of what he was doing. He was talking about performing a miracle, and he says that we must work the works, and we're talking about miracles in here, while it's still called today.
Sure. I don't, yeah, I don't disagree. Yeah, and I think the application for us then, again, is where do we see ourselves in those things? Not able to do those works that obviously Jesus and the apostles could do, but the idea just that let's get busy about being serious and doing the things that are important, that pertain to the Lord and spiritual things, and not getting so caught up maybe in some other things. Jared?
A basic statement would be just time is limited. Right?
Sure.
For them, for us, life is short.
Yep.
Take advantage of time.
Absolutely. Right. So as he continues in this, and he makes this statement that he's made again, I am the light of the world. He said the same thing in chapter 8 and verse 12. And as he does it this time, he spits on the ground, stirs it up a little bit, and wipes it on the guy's eyes. That's kind of gross. So then he does that, and then tells this guy to go wash in the pool. Are you surprised by the guy's reaction? The blind guy? I was. I mean, again, I'm trying to put myself there, and does he know who Jesus is at this point, Chad? He doesn't, right? He knows him by name, we'll find out here in just a second, but apparently that's about it. But he goes and does it, which just kind of, I think my first reaction to that would be, I'm going to try to wipe the mud out of my eyes. This just seems kind of strange to me, but he doesn't do that. And that's just interesting to me. And then he does. He goes away to the pool and washes. If we know nothing else about this guy, it seems to me at least at this point, this man can be held in extreme contrast to the Jews and the Pharisees that we just talked about in the heart of this man. He is willing to listen and to do some things. Now, I think we're going to see a case of his faith growing throughout as this story goes on. I don't know where it is at this point. We're just not given that much information, but he doesn't know a lot, seemingly, but yet is obedient to what Jesus tells him to do. Jared?
You can see that, like hope and need. So the guy obviously has been blind all that. Imagine how great it would be to see. He's going to do whatever it would take to do that. So he's got hope that, certainly he's heard about miracles.
Sure.
Maybe this is the one, right? I'll do it, right? As strange as it sounds, I'll do it. So he's got this need, and trying to apply that to us. We've got a need, right? We've got that sin in our lives and the wonderful hope that we're offered through Christ.
Yeah.
Are we going to do what we need to, what it takes? It's amazing that we can even have that opportunity.
Right.
Do we take advantage of it?
Yeah, how desperate for salvation are we? This guy was pretty desperate in the condition he was in and was willing to do what he needed to do. Chad?
If I were putting myself in his place, and he's not sure what's going on, he's hearing a large crowd likely walk by, and they stop and they start asking, like, is this man guilty? And this might have been a question that he has wrestled with his whole life too, is what did I do wrong? What did my parents do wrong? And Jesus immediately kind of earns his trust when they call him rabbi, and he also says, there is no guilt here. And I would think that would immediately kind of let down his guard.
Okay.
It's like, maybe this
Yeah.
rabbi has something valuable to share with me. And then, like I said, once he puts the mud on his eyes, likely there's been a small layer of trust already built up that he can trust this man.
Yeah, could be. Okay, so we're here. He's gone away and done that. So let's go ahead and continue our reading. We'll go. Let's go from verse 8 through verse 23.
Therefore the Davies, and those who previously
Okay, so he goes to the pool and washes and comes back, and Jesus is gone. But the neighbors are there, and they see that this has taken place, and there's some confusion among the neighbors. What is their confusion? There's been a lot of confusion through John. People not just really not able to figure some things out.
They don't know why he can see.
Yeah, is that even him? And so there's all of these conversations going on. Is this him? Well, it looks like him, but I don't know if it's him. And, he's in the background going, it's me, it's me, it's me. He keeps saying, he continues to say, it's me. Again, it's neat how John picks up on this confusion thing here, okay? And so they're not sure what's going on. And so they ask him, how did this happen? So he just simply recounts the story for them, right? Jesus said, put the mud on my eyes and told me to go wash. And so I went and washed, and now I can see. That's obviously not good enough of an answer. And so they bring the Pharisees in verse 13, and they bring them to the guy that was blind. What next little caveat do we have here? It's the Sabbath. How in the world could he do this on the Sabbath? And so that's just, again, reason enough to dismiss anything that could have possibly been done that was good here, right? At least in their eyes. And I say all those things tongue in cheek is we think about just the stubbornness, the hard-headedness of the Pharisees here, and so as they are trying to get to the bottom of the matter, they again want a recount of what happened, and they dismiss Jesus on the grounds of what this time? He is obviously a sinner, and because of, like we said, because of doing these things on the Sabbath day, what is I'm going to say the blind man. He's not blind anymore, but how does he respond to their conclusion of Jesus?
He says he doesn't know. All he knows is what happened.
Okay.
He's not going to say one way or the other.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry? At this point now he calls him the prophet, right? Chad, did you have? Okay. And so they don't like that answer. So let's go check with his parents, right? So let's go ask his mom and dad, is this your son? And all of this silliness that has to take place here. And how do the parents respond? So what do you make of the parents here then? Okay, all right. Kind of throwing him, yeah. Make him stand alone, right? He's of age. We don't want to get kicked out of the. Yeah. So what do we know from the end of this section that we read? What do we know about the parents and what their trepidation was here? Yeah, they're completely acting out of fear here. Austin.
This is no different than back in 7:13,
Okay.
where no one speaks for fear of the Jews,
Right.
John wants us to see the power struggle that is here, that people are witnessing truly with their eyes. Okay, if he wasn't blind from birth, he's been a really good faker, whatever his age is. That's a pretty good shenanigans.
Right.
We thought he was a sinner our whole life. Now he miraculously has sight, and
Nathan?
Yeah, and going back to what we read earlier, it's neat how number one, Jesus heals the guy physically. We saw that. All at the same time, working his works, he's teaching a spiritual lesson, and more good is through that is coming. And then number three in verse 16, which goes along with what Austin said, is power struggle. We still see Pharisees here that are divided now. So Jesus has effectively done three things, and one of those is huge in toppling this, governing body which tries to make all the rules and kick people out of synagogues, and he's even making them, second guess and look at him.
Yeah, go ahead, Austin.
In adding to that, right, like in this narrative alone, we see a prophet, a man named Jesus, who has power over something that happened in the womb, something that was there before creation, and he takes a part of creation to heal him. I don't think John wants us to miss those symbolisms either, that Jesus has power over things that happened at birth, and Jesus has power over nature in order to use it to heal. Now, I know the mud wasn't what really healed him, but the physical representation of what these people are seeing, and then you add the pool of scent, right?
Mhm.
The name scent, and so Jesus has come into the world, he was sent into the world by the Father, and now Jesus has commanded this man and sent this man to the pool to receive life, to receive healing. Like, this is one more kind of sub-message that John is saying. These Pharisees have it slapping them in their face, literally, with mud, and they're not willing to see it, and this blind man who can't see, sees it clearly.
And you reminded me of a question I wanted to ask when we started this section, to be thinking about, and I want to kind of conclude this chapter with it, why didn't Jesus just speak and heal the guy like he did the lame man? Just, again, think about that, and we'll see if we can maybe make some points from that as we conclude this, but be thinking about that. So, I'm sorry, Guy, go ahead.
In verses 7 and 11, he wasn't healed with the mud on his eyes. He had to obey what Jesus told him. It took
Okay.
his action before he was healed. I mean, Jesus could have done it without just saying, he could have just said it, but he told him to go, wash your eyes in the pool.
Yeah. Yep. Julie.
I think it's also interesting that this blind man and his parents, they only speak facts. They don't like embellish on anything, not like the Pharisees.
Yeah, I like seeing the transformation in this blind man as he goes through this, and as he is defending what happened, and we just see his faith growing, I think, in how he answers them, and in the final conversation that he'll have with Jesus at the end of the chapter. I just think we see just this complete transformation or growth of his faith in here, as John has used this word faith, and we've talked about, or believe, as we've talked about throughout here. We're seeing this come to fruition in this guy, and I just think that's really neat. Something else to kind of keep our eye on as we go through here. So yeah, he just simply speaks facts. Okay, you've got a guy that's blind. I can only imagine what he is to society as a figure is compared to who the Pharisees are, and they know all of these great things. And in this conversation, are the Pharisees looking for truth? What are they trying to do here? Why are they asking for the 28th time here how he got better? They're going to keep asking until they get the answer they want, right? And he's just simply not giving that. He's just speaking facts of what has happened here. And again, just standing back and looking at this, okay, here's somebody who can see the facts of what happened, who can think logically through these things, and give answers to their demands. And it's just the irony in this guy who is nothing being able just to defend, obviously so easily against their criticisms and such. Okay, what else do you want to say down through verse 23? Mark, is it?
I was thinking about after the fact of all this going on, and they're not in front of the Pharisees and everything, what the parents' actual reaction was. Their son, you see, he's been blind all his life. They're probably behind closed doors celebrating.
You would have to think so, right? And I would thought we would kind of, as we concluded this again, kind of look maybe at each set of characters and try to make applications or whatever through that. And that's definitely one I wanted to definitely hit on is, yeah, I mean, how do you not celebrate this at this moment? But again, we see them acting out of fear. And again, I want to see if there's lessons we can draw from that. Matt?
I think it shows a man will go 10 times further in hypocrisy than they will for the truth.
Yeah.
What did Jesus do? He spit, bent over, wiped mud. The man walked, splashed water in his face. These guys are convening a full trial, calling witnesses, taking up the entire Sabbath to get what they want.
Yeah.
And they're condemning this man, his parents, and Jesus.
Yeah.
The hypocrisy is just out of this world.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see kind of a new Christian here, and I use that very, very loosely. But I think, and maybe we each one each day should have the same response. So maybe that's shameful of me to think like it only belongs to new Christians. But he obeys, as Guy said, right? No questions asked. Wow, here's water. What hinders me? I'm going to do the right thing. He then, regardless of the cost, right? When God changes people and their lives, they do whatever. And so when they bring him back, and the people who were talking about him, including the disciples, like, what's wrong with this guy? I'm sure he heard that every day. Who sinned? Your mom, your dad, or
Sure.
you? And now he's living inside, and they ask him what's going on. I have no idea, but I can see. And so he's counted the cost there of what it takes. And then, as Matt just said, like these Pharisees are building a case and a charge, and instead his faith just continues to grow. In verse 11 through like 38, which I know we're not there yet, but the man called Jesus did it. He's a prophet. If this man were not from God, he couldn't do anything. Lord, I believe. That is what a Christian does, and somebody who encounters who God is. And we should each one, as I corrected myself, be living that truth daily of what has God done for me? What has God opened my eyes to today?
And that ought to cause us to fall down and worship. Okay. Let's read 24 through 34.
So a second time they called the man who had been blind and said to him, "Give glory to God. We know that this man is a sinner." He then answered, "Whether he is a sinner I do not know. One thing I do know, that though I was blind, now I see." They said to him, "What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes?" He answered them, "I told you already, and you did not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? You do not want to become his disciples too, do you?" They reviled him and said, "You are his disciple, but we are disciples of Moses. We know that God has spoken to Moses, but as for this man, we do not know where he is from." The man answered and said to them, "Well, here's an amazing thing, that you do not know where he is from, and yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not hear sinners, but if anyone is God-fearing and does his will, he hears him. Since the beginning of time, it has never been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a person born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing." And they answered him, "You were born entirely in sins and are teaching us?" So they put him out.
Okay, and so, yeah, so they come back to him. They want him, again, they still haven't got the answer they want. So they're going to continue questioning. And I love what this man does here and how he, I think his faith is just more and more emboldened as he is understanding and seeing the hypocrisy in the Pharisees, and he's just, I think he just sees more and more that whatever happened to him is more than just this physical healing. There's something to be taken note of here, right? And so he is just, I mean, he gets on them, right? And starts to, he just speaks the truth with them continually. They make that, they say they don't know where he is from. Do they or don't they? Like, I mean, they, again, just the obvious foregone conclusions that they have in their minds, and you know, kind of what they have to say in their arguments, it just doesn't matter until they get the answer they want. And so as they continue to push him in that, and looking for him to give answer, how does he turn that back on them? How does he respond to them? Yeah, I mean, why do you want to keep hearing this story? Are you wanting to follow him too? That really sets them off. They can't even fathom that, and so they go on. We're followers of Moses. We know that God talked to Moses, but this guy, I don't know. And then how does the man answer them again? We see a lot of wisdom, I think, from this guy.
He points out that if Jesus wasn't from God, he could not have done what he did, and no one else has ever done it.
Yeah, and historically, you go through our Old Testaments. Have we read about any other blind person receiving sight? I don't remember anyone, but was this ever talked about throughout our Old Testaments? Isaiah? Terry, did you have anything? Okay, all right, yeah, Isaiah prophesied that at this time, right, the blind would receive sight. So again, should the Pharisees, being the wise and understanding ones, been looking for someone, or been looking that when someone did this, would make that association to this being the Messiah, the one that was promised? Should have, yeah. Did they? No. And so the blind man then continues, if this man were not from God, he could do nothing. And of course they're just offended at this. You know, who are you? And you're trying to teach us. Well, yeah, you ought to listen. You ought to listen to him. He's the only one talking any sense here. And we talked about how, I think comment was made a couple of times about just the idea, maybe this blind man heard these comments about, you know, what he do to have these, and wonder where that came from, right? You were born entirely in sin, and you're trying to teach us. So wonder where those thoughts came from people, right? To be wondering why that was a result of something that he had done. Okay.
He was by the gate all this time, listening to. I mean, if you're blind, you're going to hear everything everybody says.
Okay.
So you're
You're
going to hear the Pharisees walking by and saying, "Yeah, look at this sinner," but they're supposed to be helping him. They didn't help him.
Right. Matt.
And this story really reminds me of a couple things in the Old Testament. And again, so the disciples were thinking this. Who was it?
Right.
This guy or his parents?
Mm-hmm.
The Pharisees are like, I don't know, you did something wrong. Your parents did something, like, you're cursed. What did the first three of Job's friends think?
Right.
He went through this horrible life. Well, you did something, Job. There's no way that you did not do something to bring this on yourself.
Right.
You can't say that you're innocent with no understanding of the
Yeah, there's instances where sin did cause problems. There's instances where sin didn't, where people had issues and it was not a result of sin. And so, yeah, why would you jump to that conclusion? Yeah, good points. Awesome.
This section is I think, a point back, like a signpost back to chapter 1, verse 5. The light shines in darkness, and darkness has not overcome it. John is here, like, we have no greater light than Christ and God, and he is exposing what truth is and what darkness is. And so every time somebody encounters Jesus, and certainly throughout the book of John, but it's going to reveal their nature of either their followers, like this blind man who is blindly following, pun intended, Jesus, because he is the light, and I want to be with that, versus those who claim to have the light that are completely in darkness, and Jesus exposes that darkness.
Okay, let's go ahead and read 35 through 41.
Jesus heard that they had put him out, and finding him, he said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" He answered, "Who is he, Lord, that I may believe in him?" And Jesus said to him, "You have both seen him, and he is the one who is talking with you." And he said, "Lord, I believe." And he worshipped him. And Jesus said, "For judgment I came into this world, so that those who do not see may see, and those who see may become blind." Those of the Pharisees who were with him heard these things and said to him, "We are not blind too, are we?" And Jesus said to them, "If you were blind, you would have no sin. But since you say, 'We see,' your sin remains."
Okay, and so as a result of the blind man confessing Jesus, they cast him out of the synagogue, just excommunicate him, right? He is no longer a part of society as far as that goes. And lo and behold, now that he's all alone, who shows up on the scene? Jesus, right? Like, where you been all this time? I've been going through this stuff, right? Again, I say that in jest, but to make a point as we think through this. Okay, so Jesus shows up, and he asks the man if he believes in the Son of Man. And this neat exchange here, who is he, Lord, that I may believe him? And Jesus says, you've both seen him, and he is the one talking to you. He said, Lord, I believe, and he worshiped him. Just, again, John's use of belief, of faith through here, right? This man has gone through all of these things. He has been tested by fire in here, and now as he has been, kicked out of the synagogue, Jesus finally comes to him. Now he can see him, and they have this exchange here, and this belief that he has, as Austin pointed out earlier when he walked us through each phase of it, leads to him believing, which leads to him worshiping, and that is the true belief that Jesus is looking for and hasn't seen much of as we've gone through John here. Then as he continues this, and those who are standing by, Jesus says that he came for judgment, so that those who do not see may see, and that those who see may become blind. What? Okay, help me with that. It's wordy again. You guys know how I am with wordy passages. What is Jesus saying?
I think it's just like the analogy of like those who are humble will be exalted, and those who are exalted will be humble.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jesus, as he continues in that, And the Pharisees then ask if they too are blind. And Jesus says, if you were blind, you would have no sin, but since you say we see, your sin remains. And just like you said, it is that recognition of my sin that then means that I need salvation from that sin, right? And until I get to that point, I'm going to remain in that sin. And so it is. It's a very humbling remark. I'm going to go to Ed and then Nathan.
If he said something like, they think they see, meaning they understand, but they're actually blind.
Yeah, who's the blind person now, or people? Nathan?
And they say they see, but obviously by their actions, they're proving that they don't, because they don't believe. But it's the total opposite of what this one who just healed. His actions exactly showed who's no longer blind.
Yeah, awesome.
Well, I know these are from other Gospels, but over in Matthew and in Luke, we have this parable of the Good Shepherd who goes out and seeks the lost sheep. That is what God's leaders should always be doing, right? That wasn't like a new Jesus, you do this. That was the message that you as the lawgivers should be seeking those who are lost, not waiting for the lost to come to you and then give them their credentials so that they obey.
Right.
You are the lawgivers. You are supposed to go rally the people, like Matt said, find the one who's sick and broken. And those two gospels showing the lost sheep, Jesus goes and seeks this man out once he's cast out, once he's a lost sheep. And then we'll see in chapter 10 of John where he calls himself the Good Shepherd.
Yeah.
So I think John wants us to see once again this messianic kind of image and shepherd of who God is for his people. Sorry.
That's okay. Did you want to make a final comment, Matt?
I guess just going back to your original question or comment, why didn't he just speak it? Why didn't he use the mud? Mud is opaque and you cannot see through it. The blind man accepted that in faith and was healed. So now the mud is now applied to the Pharisees' eyes so that they can no longer see.
Okay. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. All right, so tonight, we'll see if I can convey my thoughts well enough again. I'm going to be talking about the intended fuel. That's kind of the name I've given it. Have you ever put the wrong fuel in your vehicle? Neither have I. But I hear bad things happen. Like we have a gas weed whacker that takes 50-50 and mixed gas, and then I just know not to put gasoline in it or diesel, ruin the engine for some reason. I don't really know engines very well, but I am very impressed by them, and I love seeing the similarities between them and our bodies as well. How God designed us, where we break food or fuel down, and we turn it into energy, and turn that energy into motion. And of course, our body is much more efficient and impressive since God designed it. But I'd like to talk about the intended fuel that we have. So starting off with the obvious, God. Since God created us, He also designed us and has a fuel that He intends for us to use. So we'll start with a couple of short passages talking about the bread of life and living water. Starting in Matthew chapter 4, verse 4. We're just going to be doing short stints. It's also back in Deuteronomy where it's first talked about. This is when Jesus was being tempted, and he's in the desert, or in the wilderness, and I'll just start in verse 3. And the tempter came and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread." But he answered him, "It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God." And then also, what we're studying in class in John, I'll jump over to John chapter 4 first. Starting in verse 13, Jesus said to her, "Everyone who drinks of this water will be thirsty again," speaking of the well that Jacob dug, that she was pulling from. "But whoever drinks of the water that I will give him will never be thirsty again. The water that I will give him will become in him a spring of water welling up to eternal life." And then a couple chapters over, chapter 6, verse 35, that's where he mentions the bread of life. After feeding the 5,000, and he crosses over the Sea of Galilee, that they chase around and find him, and he says to them, "You're only following me because I'm feeding you." And then he says, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me shall not hunger, and who believes in me shall never thirst." And so these passages, it's obvious to know that there's something more that he's trying to give us than what we may pursue. So how do we use this fuel that God has intended for us? Just looking at a couple of, pretty much any notable person in the Bible has a good example, but the ones that quickly came to my mind, Noah, how he used this fuel. He used it to prepare for what you know will happen, even though you've never seen it happen before. It's kind of like the little summary I thought in my head, where he's never seen rain. God says it's going to rain, and so he starts preparing for it. And so likewise with us, we know God has laid down what's going to happen. He's given us instructions. We know what to do. Prepare yourselves to do it before you're required to do something. And I think that someone gave a talk a while back about being there for someone when they need you, and if you're not prepared for it at the time, it's a missed opportunity to connect with that person and to encourage and to strengthen them if they have a weak time. And I think it was a talk about, studying the Bible, being well-knowledged and well-versed. If we're not doing that, we're not going to be prepared to help each other out. And then Abraham was called to just leave his family and go to this unknown land. So being willing to disconnect from poor influences that we may be comfortable with. And then Ruth is kind of tied in with Abraham. She wasn't willing to go back to her family even when everything kind of went south. Her husband and her brother-in-law died, and Naomi said, just go back home where you know how life works back there. And she said, "No, I'm going to follow you. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God." And so they used this, I think, their intended fuel to disconnect and to not return to those poor influences. Esther is another one I think of. Her situation was high stakes persuasion. If just something went wrong, she was probably going to be killed. Our stakes might be not that high, but there are people that we love, but it might not be because they're like Christians. We just have a really good bond with them. And if we maybe talk to them wrongly or push them, I don't know, having conversations with them might not go well, and you might lose that friendship forever. That's a high-stake persuasion, but she still went through with it, and so should we. And then Joseph, his life was a roller coaster, mainly going down. But he always found God's point of view in every single part of his struggle. And I think that's what we should use this fuel for, where whatever instance we're in, we're looking at how can I let God direct me to do this more, how he wants me to. And then I think one that's really similar to us are the apostles. They were given this work to do, and we're still continuing it. And there hasn't really been a change since then. God gave them a command, and Jesus really told them to go out and to spread the gospel, and we're still doing that right now. They were saying something that was very unpopular at the time, and we still are saying something very unpopular. And everyone around us is trying to embarrass us and make us stop, I guess. So we need to be able to say the unpopular thing without fear of embarrassment or rejection, especially from friends or family that we don't want to lose. So this fuel that they're using, how do we use it? I think it's our faith, and it's their faith. They're willing to believe that what God said is real, and they're willing to let that change what they do. And I feel like a lot of times I just say, like, yeah, it's faith, and I don't really think of it too much deeper than that. And what we're experiencing, you are real, your days are real, and if we know that all of God's words made reality in Genesis, then what he said, everything he says is our reality. I don't know, it's a weird thought I have, but it's like I fully can't wrap my head around it, that just what he says is true, like, because he is truth. So if we know he's written it down, and when we know what's going to happen, why do we not always just go through with what we need to do? I'm saying this mainly to myself, just because I struggle with it. So as much confidence that you have in the fact that you are a real person, you should have the same amount of confidence that God has a way for you, that he's given you something to do, and that it's going to work if you do it. Read his words, read the Bible, understand them, and make all your actions come from them. And so, what went wrong? Like, why are we not using this intended fuel? I'll just read a little bit of Genesis. We all know it very well. Genesis chapter 3, the fall of man. Sometimes just the memory of the words aren't exactly what the words exactly say, and I think it helped when I read it. But the serpent said to the woman in verse 4, "You will not surely die, for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." And so just that little bit of being like God, knowing good and evil, was enough to tempt us to think, okay, maybe we don't need God. If we can be like him, we can create our own happiness. We can find our own fuel that will sustain us, and we won't need to be sustainable off of his fuel that he's given us. And then this goes into the whole cycle of man searching for something that they can run off of, some kind of new fuel. And then as they run for a little bit, they'll break down. It's like a machine, and you put the wrong fuel in, and it works for a little bit, and then it breaks down. And it's like, okay, let's try something else. So we're chasing, I don't know, it can manifest itself in any of ways, like money or some kind of power or some high status or futile activities that just give pleasure. We have thought that we can become God by giving ourselves our own happiness, by fueling ourselves with something that he did not intend us to go off of. So if your life is feeling really like stuck in a rut or boring or just blah, there's probably a reason is that you're not using the intended fuel God has given you. So reconsider your fuel, your friends, your hobbies. Are they worth doing? After doing it, do you feel like, well, that was really good? like 20 years from now, are you going to be like, I'm glad I spent hundreds of hours doing that? I know there's a lot of regrets I have for that. That from that question. So I just wanted, I know it wasn't as much Bible reading as I would have wanted for a talk. I hope this was encouraging enough, though, to stimulate maybe some desire to reconsider our fuel intake, and hopefully put some better fuel, reading the Bible more, into our lives.
When we walk with the Lord in the light of His word, what a glory He sheds on our way. While we do His good will, He abides with us still, and the all who will trust and obey. Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus, but to trust and obey. Not a shadow can rise, not a cloud in the sky, but His smile quickly drives it away. God does have nor a fear, not a sigh nor a tear. In the Lord will we trust and obey. Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus, but to trust and obey. Not a burden we bear, not a sorrow we share, but our toil we doth richly repay. Not a grief nor a loss, not a crown nor
Father, it has been good for us to be here tonight in all aspects. We're thankful for your many blessings. We're thankful for the group that has gathered here, that wants to know you and wants to encourage each other. We're thankful for those blessings. Help us to trust and obey as we just sang. Whether our class studied from the Old Testament or New Testament tonight, our classes reveal who you are, and other people who have gone through life and have faced decisions, and we just see how important it is to know you. Help us to know you in this life so that we can spend it with you in the life to come. Help us to consider what was talked about for a few minutes ago, that you are the creator. Thank you for that reminder that was brought to our attention, and how important it is for us to look at your instructions and to follow your instructions and not our will, but your will. We're so thankful that you are so loving and have revealed yourself to us, and that you have provided a way back to you through Christ. We're just so thankful for all that you do for us. Help us to appreciate it and live this life in service to you. It's in Christ's name we pray. Amen.